Hello everybody, so today we are going to be looking at how to change the oil on a 2016 Toyota Prius. Alright, so here's everything we're going to need for this. We're going to need about 4 quarts of 0W20. We're going to need a oil filter, a filter adapter, 14mm and a 10mm socket, a socket wrench, and a flathead screwdriver. In addition, you will need a jack and jack stands and an oil pan.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to jack this car up. Alright, one thing to note here is that this car is super low to the ground. I mean this, I don't care if I'm hitting that, but just in general, this car is super low to the ground. So you're going to need a low profile jack or something like that. And then we're going to have to find a piece of metal under here that we can jack up. This car is actually so low, I'm going to use a scissor jack at the jack point to lift it up a little bit so I can get my jack underneath there. So actually the correct point where you're supposed to have this jack is actually my jack's not. It's actually a little forward, but there's no way I'd be able to lift it. This is my tiny jack that I'm trying to use. So what I'm going to do is lift one side and then I'm going to get my jack at the right spot so I can lift the car up from that. Alright, so now that I got this is a jack in there, we're going to get this jack on the jacking point down there. Alright, so now that the car is jacked up, we are going to go take our oil pan here and we're going to slide it underneath. Alright guys, so now before we go ahead, now that the car is all jacked up and secured on jack stands, we have to remove this access door cover. I already took out the nuts here. There are 10mm. Bolts here. They're 10 millimeter bolts. And then there should be one more in the back, and then it'll just slide out. Right, so in here, that's where we're gonna have, this is where we're gonna drain our oil. And then in here, we have our oil filter. Alright, so for the oil plug, we're going to use a 14mm and we're going to drain it into our oil pan. Alright, so we got our 14mm bolt over here, so your oil plug here. We're going to make sure it's set to loose and we're going to get it out. Wow, this one's actually pretty tight. Oh, there we go. Very hard to do while holding a camera. Alright. Also make sure that you're doing this on a cold car. Otherwise, this can hurt. But there we go. Right into the oil pan. And now we're just going to wait and let that drain. Now that we got most of the oil out, we're going to go plug this guy back up. Right. And so over here, it's actually stuck on this car, is the crush washer. I don't have another one with me, but typically you change that out. This one's stuck on there pretty good. Just make sure that you got a good seal. Right, so, but you should change that out. It shouldn't get stuck like that. I don't have one here with me, otherwise I'd do that. Alright, so now that that's closed up, the next thing is your oil filter. Alright, so this is a 14mm over here. Alright, so to take out your oil filter, you're going to need this little adapter. Right, you cannot do it without it. I've tried, and you're probably just gonna end up breaking it or whatever. So you're actually gonna have to also lift back on this little metal tab here whenever you're doing it. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna get our filter wrench, or filter wrench, and we're gonna match up the teeth on it to these little notches here. All right. You want to make sure that they're lined up and that it sits flush. This little tab here is there to prevent your filter from spinning out Alright, so it would catch on the teeth. It's not on there now because I redid this shot. But yeah, so you're gonna pull that back with a little screwdriver and you're gonna get this on so it can sit properly. Now we're gonna go ahead and loosen. It's gonna take a couple of turns, don't worry. Alright. Yep, there we go. Make sure that it's leaking into your pan. Right, I'm gonna get my wrench off. There, so I can do it by hand. Right, these vertical filters get really, really messy. Alright, there you go. Also, like, while you're, like, you know, doing all this, make sure that you don't see any contaminants or whatnot in your oil. Make sure you don't see any metal shavings, anything like that, because that can be a sign of a major engine issue. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna prep the new filter.
Alright guys, so now that we got the old filter out of there, you just pull on that, should come out. We're gonna get off this old gasket. Right, so there's a little notch over here that's meant so you can kind of pry this guy off. I'm just gonna pull that, and it'll come right off. Okay, so now we're gonna open up our new filter. There's a filter number if you need it. So your new filter is right here, whoops. And it's gonna come with the new gasket we need. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get that in there. All right. We're gonna open up. All right, actually, real quick. So this is the old one. It looks different because this one's from Fram. And if you need that number, let me see if I can get that focused on there. All right, it's 173214. All right, this time I'm going back to the originals, just because I mean there's not that big of a price difference, and I don't know, I just prefer using original. You use whatever you're comfortable with. So make sure you get oil on this. Oil around this gasket to prevent any leaks. It's just gonna make sure that everything stays sealed. Right, and then the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this piece up with oil. And again, that's to your discretion if you fill it up with oil or not. There's like a lot of debates on whether you should do that or if you shouldn't do that. I'm just going to do that just because that's what I've done with all my other cars as well. But that's up to you. You make sure that that's something you want to do. Just a tiny bit, we're going to go around the entire. Right, so this is the new one that we're putting the oil on, and then we're going to get it into its groove here. All right, and this next part's up to your discretion again, if you want to do it, if you don't want to do it. I'm just going to pour that in there just because I don't want to waste any oil at all. And then I'm going to fill this up just a little bit. All right, just filled it up a little bit. We're going to let it soak up in the media. All right. Again, to your discretion. Some people do this, some people do not. Yeah, it's up to you whether or not you fill it up or not. All right, because it can get messy, and as you see, like these vertical canisters get very messy like all the time. So you don't have to do this, I guess, if you don't want to. It's just something that I've done on all my filters.
All right, so now we're gonna get this guy back in there. And this little tab's still gonna bug you. So just a heads up on that. Alright. Make sure it goes in right. You know, make sure it's in as much as you can with your hands. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use our wrench and adapter, which is a pain in the butt. Oh boy. There we go. Make sure it's set to tight now that we're done. Like I said, that tab's still gonna bug you. You should pull it back. Don't do what I'm doing. You see that? Now it's gonna get caught on that, so. Well, actually, turns out you can take this guy out, which I wish I knew before. Anyways, now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to go back to tightening this. Make sure it lines up, the teeth line up. And then we're just gonna get it nice and snug. Alright, there we go. Don't over tighten it. Just, there we go. These, by the way, they tend to get stuck on. You just gotta whack them a couple of times, they'll come out. Alright, so there we go. This part's done. And then don't forget to put this guy back in if you have taken it out. It is a pain in the butt, but it can prevent your thing from spinning out if you didn't put it in right. So there we go. Just slides in, okay? And now we're done taking all the oil out. We've got the new filter in, and the next step is going to be to fill it up with new oil. And before we get underneath from here, we're going to put back our little access cover. Make sure everything's cleaned up. Make sure that there's no leaking or anything like that while you're down here. All right, make sure everything's on tight. Well, nice and snug. All right, so now we're gonna line this up. Okay, just like that. This whole step is a pain in the butt. So, and this one actually only has one. I got that hand tightened. This is a 10 millimeter. If you need that reminder. Again, don't over tighten any of these. It's all plastic here, so. All right. If you did have, well, if you do have all yours, there's one more hole here, and another one over here. I do not, so that's it for me. And now we're going to lower the car, get it nice and flat, and then we're going to fill up the new oil. Alright guys, so now that we have the car on a level surface, we're going to go ahead, we're going to get open our oil cap. We're going to get a funnel. Well, I will, because I get, you know, everything messy, but, you know, you do you. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill it up. Alright, so our goal here is to add in about 4 quarts of oil. And keep in mind, we already put, well, I put some in for the oil filter. So you got to keep all that stuff in mind. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to remove our oil cap next, and then we are going to put in a funnel, and then we're going to add in 4 quarts of 020, and then we're going to see where our dipstick is with that. All right. So now that we got 4 quarts in here, we're going to check where our oil level is. Alright guys, so to check the oil level on this car, what we're going to have to do is we're going to put the oil cap back on, and we're going to have to let the car run for a little bit to let the oil circulate throughout the system to get an accurate reading. Before you guys turn on the car though, I think it's very important to go ahead and double check the amount of oil that you got out. If everything went smoothly, you should have gotten about 4 quarts of oil out, and as long as you're filling in about the same amount that you got out, you should be fine. However, you do not want to run the risk of overfilling your car
and blowing seals. All right, and that's it. If you guys got any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you found this video helpful, please like and share, and I'll see you guys next time.